Do you hear me? I will not be disobeyed in my own home. You are no longer welcome in this house. Get out, all of you!
Sir, please, you're scaring the child.
Became terrified, and Luca Moretti was afraid. He stood beside the enormous window of his private study, staring into the darkness beyond the iron gates of his estate, while rain struck the glass in thin, angry lines. Behind him, on a leather sofa, a doctor from Manhattan was closing his medical case with trembling hands. "I've examined her twice, Mr. Moretti." Luca did not turn around. "And, physically, I can't find anything that should prevent her from eating." Luca slowly faced him, and the doctor immediately wished he had chosen different words. Luca Moretti was 38 years old, 6'2", broad-shouldered, dressed in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than the doctor's car. But it was not Luca's size that frightened people. It was his stillness. Men who shouted could be understood. Men who threw glasses or punched walls announced their anger. Luca did neither. He simply looked at people until they began explaining things they had never been asked. "My daughter is 8 months old," Luca said. "She has refused milk for 4 days. She cries until she loses her voice. She has lost weight. And you're telling me nothing is wrong? I'm saying the tests are normal." "Then your tests are wrong. Mr. Moretti, do them again. Luca took one step forward, and the doctor stopped speaking. "Do them again." The doctor swallowed. "Yes, sir." At that exact moment, a baby's scream tore through the mansion. Luca's face changed, only for a second, but everyone in the room saw it. Fear. Pure, helpless fear. He turned and walked quickly toward the door. The doctor followed, and so did Enzo Bellini, Luca's closest friend and second in command, who had been standing silently near the bookshelf, watching the whole exchange with an expression no one thought to read. They crossed a marble hallway and climbed the grand staircase as the crying grew louder. At the end of the second-floor corridor, 6 people stood outside the nursery: 2 nurses, a pediatric specialist, Luca's sister Bianca, an armed guard, and Mrs. De Luca, the housekeeper who had served the Moretti family for 27 years. Inside the nursery, another nurse was trying desperately to feed the baby. "Please, sweetheart, please." 8-month-old Sofia Moretti twisted her tiny head away from the bottle. Her face was red, tears covered her cheeks, and when the nurse tried again, Sofia screamed. Luca entered the room. "Stop." The nurse froze. Luca walked to the crib, where Sofia's little hands were shaking, and picked her up carefully. The most feared man in Brooklyn held his daughter as though she were made of glass. "Papa is here," he whispered. Sofia cried against his chest. Luca closed his eyes. For 8 months, he had been learning how to be a father alone. His wife, Isabella, had died 3 hours after Sofia was born. The official cause was complications from childbirth. Luca had been holding Isabella's hand when the machines began screaming, and he still dreamed about that sound. Sometimes, in the middle of the night, he woke convinced he could feel her fingers slipping from his. Sofia was the only part of Isabella he had left, and now she was starving in his arms. "Try the bottle," Bianca said softly. Luca sat in a chair. The nurse handed it to him, and he placed the bottle near Sofia's mouth. For half a second the baby became quiet. Everyone watched. Then Sofia's eyes moved toward the bottle. Her entire body stiffened, and she screamed so violently that Luca nearly dropped it. "No, no, no." Luca threw the bottle across the room. It shattered against the wall. Silence. Everyone stared at him. Luca stood with Sofia in his arms. "Get out." No one moved. "I said, get out." The nurses rushed toward the door. The doctor followed, and Bianca hesitated. "Luca, not now. She's getting weaker." Luca looked at his sister. Bianca's eyes filled with tears. "I know. Then we need to take her to a hospital." "No. Luca, no hospitals. You can't keep bringing doctors here. Watch me. This isn't business." Luca's eyes hardened. "You think I don't know that?" Bianca lowered her voice. "Then stop acting like every person outside these gates is your enemy." Luca stared at her. Neither spoke. Finally, Bianca walked away, and Mrs. De Luca followed. Enzo remained at the doorway. "Boss." Luca looked down at his crying daughter. "What?" "We need to talk. Tomorrow. It's about the shipments. Tomorrow. The Ricci family is moving on the docks." Luca raised his head. "My daughter hasn't eaten in 4 days, Enzo." Enzo nodded. I understand. No, you don't. Luca turned away. Handle it. Enzo watched him for several seconds, and something crossed his face that Luca, exhausted and half turned away, never saw. It was the same look he'd worn more and more often lately, whenever Luca dismissed him with 2 words instead of a conversation. Enzo said nothing. He quietly closed the nursery door. Luca was alone with Sophia. He walked slowly around the room. Your mother would know what to do. Sophia whimpered. Luca looked toward a framed photograph beside the crib. Isabella, laughing in the picture, pregnant, alive. Luca stared at her. You always knew. His voice broke slightly, and he immediately stopped speaking. Men like Luca Moretti did not cry, not because they could not, but because once a man built an empire on fear, he became a prisoner of the face that protected it. Luca kissed Sophia's forehead. Please eat, the baby cried. Please, but Sophia refused. Downstairs, in a part of the mansion Luca rarely visited, a 19-year-old maid named Rosa Alvarez heard everything, and she knew something was wrong. Not with the baby, with the bottle. Rosa had been working at the Moretti estate for exactly 11 days. She was the youngest member of the household staff and easily the quietest, and most people barely noticed her, which was intentional. Rosa had grown up learning that invisible people heard more. Her mother had cleaned hotel rooms. Her father had disappeared when Rosa was 6. By 14, Rosa could cook, sew, remove wine stains from white linen, and recognize the sound of a drunk man walking up a staircase. At 17, her mother died. At 19, Rosa found herself standing in a mansion owned by a man people in her neighborhood only mentioned in whispers. Luca Moretti, the Wolf of Brooklyn. Rosa had been warned about him on her first day. Mrs. DeLuca had taken her through the mansion and explained the rules. Never enter Mr. Moretti's study without permission. Never ask about visitors. Never touch the locked cabinet in the dining room. Never use the east staircase after midnight. And most importantly, never speak to Mr. Moretti unless he spoke first. Rosa had followed every rule until the baby stopped eating. On the first day, Rosa assumed Sophia was sick. On the second day, she noticed something strange. Every time a bottle was carried upstairs, Sophia began crying before the milk even touched her mouth. On the third day, Rosa saw a nurse prepare the formula, and the baby screamed. But 20 minutes later, Rosa passed the nursery carrying clean sheets and saw Sophia chewing desperately on the corner of her blanket. Hungry, Rosa stopped. Sophia saw her, and the baby became quiet. Rosa smiled. You're hungry, aren't you? Sophia kicked her feet. Then Mrs. DeLuca appeared. Rosa. Rosa straightened. Yes, ma'am. What are you doing? Nothing. Then continue doing it somewhere else. Rosa walked away, but that night she could not sleep. Something bothered her about the baby's reaction. It was not the reaction of a child without appetite. Sophia wanted to eat. She was afraid to eat. The question was why. On the 4th night, after Luca dismissed everyone from the nursery, Rosa was polishing silver in the kitchen while the cook, Teresa, whispered with one of the nurses. She's going to die, the nurse said. Teresa crossed herself. Don't say that. It's true. Babies can't go this long. Another doctor is coming tomorrow. Doctors don't know what's wrong. Rosa continued polishing a spoon. The nurse opened a cabinet and removed a bottle. Rosa looked up. What are you doing? The nurse frowned. Excuse me? The bottle. I'm preparing one for later. Rosa watched her measure formula. Add warm water, shake the bottle, and place it inside the refrigerator. The nurse noticed Rosa staring. Is there a problem? Rosa looked down. No. The nurse left, and Teresa followed. Rosa was alone. For several seconds she did not move. Then she walked toward the refrigerator, opened it, and removed the bottle from the top shelf. She smelled the milk. Nothing. She placed one tiny drop on her finger and touched it to her tongue. Her expression changed. Bitter. Very slightly. Almost impossible to notice beneath the formula. Rosa stared at the bottle. Her mother had once worked in the kitchen of a nursing home, and when Rosa was 12, she sometimes waited there after school. She remembered medications being crushed into food. Some were almost tasteless, others left a faint bitterness. Rosa looked toward the kitchen door. Her heart began pounding. She poured the bottle into the sink, then froze. Footsteps. Someone was coming. Rosa quickly rinsed the bottle and returned it to the refrigerator. The door opened. Enzo Bellini entered. Rosa immediately picked up her polishing cloth. Enzo looked at her, then at the sink, then at the refrigerator. "What are you doing?" "Cleaning, sir." At midnight, Mrs. DeLuca said the silver must be finished. Enzo walked closer. Rosa lowered her eyes. She could smell his cologne. "What's your name?" "Rosa." "Rosa what?" "Alvarez." Enzo nodded slowly. "How long have you worked here?" 11 days. 11 days. He smiled, but his eyes did not. "That's not very long." "No, sir." "Do you like working for Mr. Moretti?" Rosa hesitated. "Yes." "You hesitated." "I was thinking." "Don't." Rosa looked at him. Enzo's smile disappeared. Thinking causes problems in this house. It was a strange thing for a right-hand man to say about the family he supposedly served, and Rosa noticed it even then, though she didn't yet understand why. He walked toward the refrigerator. Rosa's heart stopped. Enzo opened it, looked at the empty bottle, then turned. Rosa could hear her own breathing. Enzo picked up the bottle. "Was this empty?" Rosa said nothing. "Rosa?" "No, sir." Enzo stared at her. "What happened to the milk?" Rosa made a decision. A stupid decision. A dangerous decision. A decision that would change every life inside the Moretti mansion. "I poured it away." Enzo became completely still. "Why?" "It tasted wrong." The kitchen seemed to become colder. Enzo placed the bottle on the counter. "You tasted the baby's milk?" "Yes." "Why?" "Because she's hungry. Doctors say." "The doctors are wrong." "You're a maid." "Yes." "Not a doctor." "No." "So perhaps you should clean the floors and allow doctors to diagnose children." Rosa's hands tightened around the cloth. "My mother used to say, babies don't know how to lie." Enzo stared at her. Rosa continued. "Adults can pretend. Babies can't. If Sophia screams every time she sees that bottle, then something about that bottle hurts her." Enzo's expression changed. Not much, but Rosa saw it. Fear. Then it disappeared. "Go to bed." "Sir. Now." Rosa left and walked quickly through the servants' corridor, but she did not go to her room. Instead, she climbed the back staircase toward the nursery. She knew she could be fired. She knew worse things happened to people who disobeyed Luca Moretti. But she also knew the baby was upstairs starving. Rosa reached the second floor. The hallway was empty. A guard stood near Luca's study at the opposite end. Rosa slipped into the nursery, where Sophia lay awake in her crib, weakly moving her hands. Rosa approached. "Hello, little one." Sophia looked at her. Rosa picked her up. She was lighter than Rosa expected. Too light. "You're hungry." Sophia whimpered. "I know." Rosa looked around. No bottle, no food. Then she remembered something her mother had done for a neighbor's baby years earlier. Rosa carried Sophia downstairs, not through the main hallway, but through the servants' staircase, into the kitchen, and placed the baby in a padded basket on the table. She found a small banana, mashed it carefully, added a tiny amount of warm water, and mixed it until it was smooth. Sophia watched her. Rosa dipped the tip of a small spoon into the mixture and sat beside the basket. Just a little. "Loni fures." Sophia opened her mouth. Rosa froze. No screaming. No turning away. She slowly brought the spoon closer, and Sophia tasted the banana. Everyone in the kitchen doorway stopped breathing. Rosa had not heard them arrive. Luca stood there. Behind him were Enzo, Bianca, Mrs. DeLuca, and 2 armed guards. Luca's face was unreadable. Rosa turned pale. Sophia opened her mouth again. Rosa looked at the baby, then at Luca. No one moved. Sophia made a tiny, impatient sound, and Rosa gave her another spoonful. The baby swallowed. Bianca covered her mouth. Mrs. DeLuca began crying. Luca stared at his daughter. 4 days. 3 doctors. Thousands of dollars in tests. Threats. Arguments. Prayers. And his daughter was eating mashed banana from a maid's hand. Sophia opened her mouth again, and Rosa fed her. Then again, and again. Luca slowly entered the kitchen. Rosa stood. "I'm sorry, sir." "Sit." Rosa sat immediately. "Keep feeding her." Rosa obeyed, and Luca watched as Sophia ate 7 small spoonfuls, then 9. At the 10th, Rosa stopped. Luca frowned. "Why did you stop?" "Her stomach has been empty. She's eating. Too much at once might make her sick." Luca looked toward the doctor, who nodded quickly. "She's correct." Luca looked back at Rosa. "How did you know?" "My mother." "Your mother was a doctor?" No. A nurse? No. What was she? A cleaner. Silence. Enzo looked away. Luca crouched beside Rosa. Why did you bring my daughter down here? Rosa hesitated. Because she was hungry. Everyone knew she was hungry. No. Luca's eyes hardened, and Rosa immediately realized how her answer sounded, but Luca did not interrupt. She continued. Everyone knew she wasn't eating. That's different. Luca stared at her. Rosa pointed toward the refrigerator. She isn't refusing food. The room became quiet. She's refusing the bottle. Luca slowly stood. What are you saying? Rosa looked at Enzo, whose face was expressionless, then back at Luca. The milk tastes bitter. Luca did not move. What? I tasted it, Bianca whispered. Oh my God. Luca turned toward the nurse. Bring me a bottle. The nurse hesitated. Now. She rushed to the refrigerator, her hands shaking as she removed a prepared bottle. Luca took it, unscrewed the cap, and tasted one drop. His expression did not change. Enzo. Enzo stepped forward. Luca handed him the bottle. Enzo tasted it. Formula sometimes tastes. Get Marco. Enzo stopped. Luca. Get Marco. Marco Santini was the man Luca called when he wanted answers. 10 minutes later, the mansion gates were locked. No one entered. No one left. Every member of staff was ordered into the dining room, and 23 people stood beneath crystal chandeliers. Luca sat at the head of the table. Sofia was upstairs with Bianca and Rosa. On the table before Luca sat 6 baby bottles. Marco entered carrying a small black case. He was 54 years old, thin, gray-haired, and had once worked as a chemist before discovering that organized crime paid better than universities. He tested the milk while everyone waited. After 20 minutes, Marco removed his glasses. There's something in it. Luca's fingers tightened around the arm of his chair. What? I need proper equipment to be certain. Guess. Marco hesitated. A sedative. Several people gasped. Luca did not. How much? Small amount. Enough to kill her. Not immediately. That wasn't my question. Marco looked at him. Repeated exposure in an 8-month-old child. He paused. Possibly. Luca stood. 3 people began crying. Who prepares the bottles? The nurses looked at one another. All of us, one said. Who has access to the formula? The kitchen staff. Who has access to the kitchen? Mrs. DeLuca answered quietly. Everyone. Luca looked around the room at 23 people. Some had served his family for decades. Some had attended his wedding. Some had carried flowers at Isabella's funeral. One of them had been poisoning his daughter. Luca walked slowly along the table. I will ask once. No one moved. Who touched my daughter's milk? Silence. Luca stopped. You have 60 seconds. Mrs. DeLuca began praying under her breath. A young gardener started sweating. One nurse sobbed. 30 seconds. Luca looked at Marco, who understood, and closed the dining room curtains. 45 seconds. Then Rosa appeared at the doorway. Mr. Moretti. Luca turned, and everyone stared at her. Rosa held a sleeping Sofia. Not now. I think you should see something. Luca walked toward her. What? Rosa pointed toward Sofia's tiny hand, gripping something. A small silver button. Luca frowned. Where did she get that? It was inside her blanket. Luca removed the button carefully and examined it, then looked across the room. Enzo's jacket. One button was missing. The room became silent. Enzo looked down, then back at Luca. For 22 years, Luca Moretti and Enzo Bellini had been brothers in everything except blood. They had met at 16, fought together, bled together, buried men together. Enzo had stood beside Luca at his wedding. He had been the first person to hold Sofia after Isabella died, and now a button from his jacket had been found in the baby's crib. Luca stared at him. Enzo. Enzo slowly raised his hands. Luca, listen to me. Where is your button? I don't know. Wrong answer. Luca, where is your button? Enzo looked at Sofia, then at Rosa. I was in the nursery yesterday. Why? To see Sofia. Alone? Yes. Luca handed the baby to Rosa and walked toward Enzo. Every person in the room stepped backward. Enzo did not. Luca stopped inches from him. Did you poison my daughter? No. Did you touch her milk? No. Did you know something was wrong with it? Enzo hesitated, and that hesitation almost killed him. Luca punched him. Enzo crashed into the table, glasses shattering, women screaming. Luca grabbed his collar. You knew. I suspected. Luca hit him again. You knew. I didn't know. Another punch. Luca! Bianca rushed forward. Marco stopped her. Enzo's mouth filled with blood. I saw Rosa pour it out. Luca froze. Enzo coughed. I thought she had done something. Rosa's eyes widened. That's why I followed her upstairs. Luca released him. You suspected Rosa? She had been here 11 days. Your daughter becomes sick. I find her pouring milk into the sink. What was I supposed to think? You were supposed to tell me. I needed proof. Luca stood. Enzo wiped blood from his mouth. And now you have a button from my jacket. Luca stared at him. Enzo slowly got to his feet. So either I poisoned Sophia, he looked around the room, or someone wants you to believe I did. That changed everything. Luca looked at the silver button again. Too easy. Too obvious. A man intelligent enough to poison a baby slowly would not leave a button in her crib, unless he wanted it found. Luca turned toward Rosa. Where exactly was the button? Inside the blanket. Inside? Folded near the bottom. Luca looked at Mrs. DeLuca. Who changes Sophia's blankets? The nursery staff. Names. Mrs. DeLuca gave him 3. Nurse Helen, Nurse Margaret, and a young woman named Claire. Luca looked across the room. Helen was crying. Margaret was praying. Claire was gone. Luca's face changed. Where is Claire? No one answered. Luca turned toward the guards. Find her. The mansion exploded into movement. Men ran upstairs. Doors opened. Rooms were searched. The garage, the basement, the garden. Claire was nowhere. Then a guard shouted from the east wing. They found her in Isabella's old dressing room, dead. She lay beside the fireplace, an empty medicine bottle resting near her hand, a note on the carpet. Luca entered the room and stared at the body. Marco picked up the note. Don't touch it, Luca said. Marco stopped. Luca put on gloves and opened the paper. There were 7 words. I am sorry. I could not continue. Bianca began crying. She did it. Luca read the note again. Enzo stood behind him. Looks that way. Rosa remained near the doorway, staring at Claire, then the fireplace, then the note. Something felt wrong. Again. Rosa hated that feeling, because every time she had it in the Moretti mansion, someone became angry. Mr. Moretti. Luca looked at her, and Rosa immediately wished she had remained quiet. What? The note. What about it? She didn't write it. Every person turned toward Rosa. Enzo sighed. Rosa. Luca raised one hand, and Enzo became silent. Why do you say that? Rosa pointed toward the dressing table, where a small notebook lay beside a mirror. I cleaned this room 2 days ago. Luca walked toward the notebook and opened it. Inside were household notes written by Claire, laundry requests, feeding times, medication reminders. Luca compared the handwriting. The note was written in careful block letters. Claire's handwriting was slanted and narrow. Enzo looked at Rosa. How did you notice that? Rosa shrugged. I clean things. Luca stared at her. For the first time, he understood why invisible people were dangerous. They noticed what powerful men ignored. Marco examined Claire's body. There's another problem. Luca looked at him. What? Marco lifted Claire's left hand. Medicine bottle was on her right. So? Mrs. DeLuca? The housekeeper answered. Claire was left-handed. Luca looked at the body. The suicide was staged. Someone had poisoned Sophia, planted Enzo's button, killed Claire, and written a false confession. There was a traitor inside the Moretti mansion, and that traitor had just realized a 19-year-old maid could see through their mistakes. Rosa did not understand the danger yet. Luca did. He turned toward her. From this moment, you do not leave my sight. Rosa blinked. Sir? You're moving upstairs. What? You'll sleep in the room beside Sophia. Mrs. DeLuca looked surprised. Enzo looked concerned. Rosa shook her head. Mr. Moretti, I don't think... I wasn't asking. Rosa became quiet. Luca looked at the guards. 2 men outside Sophia's room. 2 outside Rosa's. Why? Luca walked closer. Because whoever killed Claire made 2 mistakes. He held up the false note. First, they assumed I wouldn't look carefully. Then he looked directly at Rosa. Second, they didn't expect you. That night, Rosa could not sleep. Her new room was larger than the apartment she had shared with her mother. A guard stood outside. Another patrolled the hallway. At 2 in the morning, she heard Sophia crying and got up. The guard opened the nursery door. Luca was already there, sitting beside the crib. Sophia cried weakly, a fresh bowl of mashed banana nearby. She won't eat, Luca said. Rosa approached. Did you try the spoon? Yes. Rosa looked at Sophia, who saw her and softened. Luca noticed. Rosa picked her up. Hello? Sophia touched Rosa's chin. Rosa sat, offered the spoon, and Sophia ate. Luca looked away. Rosa noticed. She knows me. Luca said nothing. That's all. I am her father. Rosa froze. Luca's voice was quiet. I hold her every night. Rosa placed the spoon down. She knows you too. Then why does she stop crying for you? Rosa looked at Sophia, then at Luca. Maybe because I'm not afraid. Luca's eyes moved toward her, and Rosa immediately realized what she had said. I'm sorry. No. Luca leaned back. Explain. Rosa hesitated. You're afraid she'll die. Luca's jaw tightened. Everyone is. Yes, but when you hold her, you're thinking about it. You know what I'm thinking? No. Then don't pretend. Rosa looked down. Luca regretted his tone immediately, but apologizing was not a skill he possessed. Rosa continued feeding Sophia. After several minutes, Luca spoke. Her mother died. I know. 3 hours after Sophia was born. Rosa looked at him. Luca stared at the floor. When Sophia cries, sometimes I hear Isabella. Rosa said nothing. I know that's ridiculous. No. Luca looked at her. My mother died when I was 17. Luca's expression softened. I still think I hear her singing sometimes. The room became quiet. Sophia ate another spoonful. Rosa smiled. Maybe babies feel what we carry. Luca watched his daughter. Then she must feel a lot of terrible things when I hold her. Rosa did not answer. Luca almost smiled. Almost. Then Sophia grabbed Rosa's finger, and Luca watched, feeling for the first time in 4 days, something other than fear. Hope. It lasted until morning. At 7, one of Luca's men found a photograph beneath Claire's mattress. It showed Isabella Moretti, pregnant, standing outside a hospital. Beside her was Claire, and behind them stood a man Luca recognized immediately, Dr. Samuel Vance, the doctor who had delivered Sophia, signed Isabella's death certificate, and disappeared 6 months later. Luca stared at the photograph. Find him. Enzo shook his head. We've tried before. Try harder. Luca, find him. By noon, every Moretti contact from Brooklyn to Boston was searching. By 3, they had found Samuel Vance living under another name in Pennsylvania. By 5, he was inside Luca's basement. Rosa did not know this yet. She was upstairs with Sophia, who had eaten 3 times already. Small amounts of banana, soft cereal, mashed pear, each bowl prepared by Rosa personally, and each ingredient tested by Marco. Sophia was getting stronger, and for the first time, Rosa allowed herself to believe the worst might be over. Then Luca entered the nursery, his shirt sleeves rolled up, blood on one cuff. Rosa looked at it. Luca noticed. Not mine. Rosa looked away. How is she? Better. Luca approached the crib, and Sophia smiled. Luca froze. It was the first time she had smiled in days. He touched her cheek. Hello, Principessa. Sophia grabbed his finger. Luca smiled. For a moment, watching him, Rosa didn't see a Mafia boss at all. She saw a tired father, nothing more. Then Enzo appeared. We have a problem. Luca's smile vanished. What? The doctor talked. Luca looked at Rosa. Stay with Sophia. He left. Rosa waited 3 minutes, then followed. Not because she was brave, but because she was terrible at obeying orders when she believed something mattered. She walked toward the east staircase, where voices came from Luca's study through a door left slightly open. Dr. Vance sat in a chair, his face bruised. Luca stood near the window. Enzo leaned against the desk. You signed my wife's death certificate, Luca said. Yes. You wrote complications. Yes, you lied. Vance began crying. Rosa covered her mouth. Luca stepped closer. What killed Isabella? Vance looked at him. She was poisoned. The world seemed to stop. Luca did not move. Enzo did not move. Rosa could not breathe. What? Vance shook. Not enough to kill her immediately. Something was introduced gradually during the final weeks of her pregnancy. Luca's voice became frighteningly calm. What substance? Vance answered, and Marco, standing near the bookshelf, whispered a curse. Luca looked at him. What? Marco swallowed. It's similar. To what? The sedative in Sophia's milk. Luca closed his eyes. 8 months apart. Mother and daughter. The same method. The same house. The same poison. Someone had killed Isabella, and now they were trying to kill Sophia. Who paid you? Luca asked. Vance cried harder. I didn't poison her. Who paid you to lie? I can't. Luca pulled a gun. Rosa stepped backward. Vance raised his hands. Wait. Name. They'll kill my family. Luca pressed the gun against his forehead. I will kill you. Vance sobbed. It was a woman. Luca froze. What woman? I never knew her name. Describe her. Dark hair. Maybe 50. Italian accent. Luca stared. Vance continued. She gave me $50,000. Told me to write complications on the certificate. Where did you meet? St. Catherine's Hospital. When? 3 hours before Isabella died. Luca's face went white. 3 hours? Vance nodded. She knew Isabella was going to die. Before Luca could speak, a gunshot exploded. Vance's head snapped backward. Rosa screamed. Glass shattered. Luca hit the floor. Enzo pulled his weapon. Window. Another shot. Marco ducked. Luca fired toward the garden while guards shouted outside. Rosa stood frozen in the hallway. Then someone grabbed her, a hand over her mouth. Rosa fought, was dragged backward into the dark servant's stairwell, kicking, biting the hand. A man cursed, and Rosa recognized the voice. One of Luca's guards, Anthony, the one who had stood outside Sophia's nursery. Rosa screamed. Anthony struck her. The world blurred as he dragged her downstairs. Gunfire still echoed outside, everyone distracted, and Anthony pulled her through the kitchen toward the garage. Why? Rosa gasped. Anthony said nothing. He opened the back door. A black car waited, and the driver stepped out. Rosa recognized him. Dr. Vance's driver. Anthony pushed her toward the car, and Rosa finally understood. The sniper had never been trying to kill Luca. He was a distraction. They were trying to take her, because Rosa had noticed the milk, the button, the handwriting. She was the problem now. Rosa twisted suddenly, grabbed a metal tray from a table, and slammed it into Anthony's face. He stumbled. Rosa ran. The driver caught her hair, and she screamed. Then the kitchen door opened. Luca stood there, blood covering one side of his face from shattered glass, his gun raised. The driver released Rosa. Luca fired, and the man dropped. Anthony reached for his weapon, but Enzo appeared behind Luca. 2 shots, and Anthony collapsed. Rosa stood shaking. Luca lowered his gun. Are you hurt? Rosa could not answer. He approached. Rosa. She looked at him. I'm okay. Luca examined the bruise forming on her cheek, his expression darkening. Then Rosa remembered. Sophia. Luca turned, and they ran upstairs together. The nursery guards were gone, the door open, the crib empty. Luca stopped breathing. No. Rosa rushed inside. Sophia. Nothing. The window, the bathroom, the closet, all empty. His daughter was gone. End of part 1.